Welcome back. Well, today I am joined by Tang Wen, who is here on behalf of the Orange County Fire Authority. Well, Tang, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I'm really glad that we were finally able to get you guys to come back on because, there wasn't hardly any rain or any snow for that matter. So I think we have a big concern coming up here with wildfires. So I'm really glad we could take the time now before it starts to get really warm. Just in general, let's take an overview of what we were dealing with last, this whole year, that there really wasn't a whole lot of rain.
Yeah, that's correct. 2020 was something, wasn't it? I mean, with everything that went on top of it, we had almost zero rain this winter. And up in the mountains, our snowpack is pretty lean. So that's pretty concerning to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you had mentioned that you have some associates that are in the area up in Northern California, and that we're looking at no snowpack, and even some of the lakes are low, which is surprising because I had not heard that.
Yeah, so I can't speak for, all of the lakes and mountains throughout California, but he's in the Eastern Sierras right now on vacation. And he shared pictures, and the lake was pretty dry. And the surrounding mountaintops, the snowpack was lean and sparse.
Well, right, and even our local mountains, Big Bear and some of that, I mean, that really doesn't benefit us for the most part. However, wouldn't it help with some of the creeks that we have in some of the back areas, like where Silverado Canyon is?
As far as the water supply goes, it's really dependent on, well, obviously the annual rainfall and the snowpack, and that's something that our water departments handle primarily. Where we come in is that we're looking at the fuel load and the concern of how dry they become, and then is there adequate spacing between homes and the fuel that's out there that's really susceptible to burning.
Right, now let's talk about the plants and the vegetation itself. I mean, there's a way to look at it to see just how dry it is and what should be concerning.
Yeah, so as far as the fuel goes, without getting super technical here, we measure it in the size and the load of the fuel. So your grass is, what we consider as our 1 hour fuel, and that's the amount of time that it actually takes to dry it out or to moisten, and to humidify it. So, we have a lot of that, and if we do get a fire that starts in that grass, that gets it going pretty fast, and then it butts up against your thick brush and your trees, and then off to the races we go.
Wow. So, what are some of the major concerns? Are you more concerned about people maybe driving at some of maybe the toll road areas and some of that drier stuff, maybe pulling over and having an issue with their car, or throwing stuff out the window like a cigarette butt?
Excellent questions. Yeah, if you just because you may live in an area that's away from the brush, you could be traveling in those areas, and so your question is spot on. Where you got to be careful what you're doing, because if you are smoking and you throw out a cigarette butt, that's all it takes. The first major wildfire I went to in 2017 for that season was the result of a truck pulling a trailer, and the chain was hanging, and it was just banging against the street and causing sparks, and that's what caused a 10,000 acre fire. And and it's just right adjacent to the dry grass. So it's those things, whether it's intentional or not intentional, it's there. So we got to be super cautious about that.
Well, exactly. And then you did mention about keeping the distance between the wild land and a backyard. I mean, I know for our Laguna Woods residents, most of them don't have to worry about things like that, but there is some open area.
Yes. And I've driven through the area, and yeah, we traditionally, you look at Laguna Woods, we're not thinking of the wildland urban interface that most people think of. However, we do have vegetation around the area, so it's everybody needs to take an active part in making sure that they're protected. I've always said it is that, it's a team effort to keep everybody safe. It's not just us. If you're just relying on us, then you didn't, take the steps to mitigate some of the problems that could have been mitigated.
Right. Now, there was that really large fire that was out off of the 241 there, and it was very concerning to people here, primarily because of the air quality. I mean, the air quality here was just horrible because all the smoke just came towards the community. So when we have things like that, obviously the fire is far away. We didn't have to be too concerned about the actual flames. But when it came to the smoke, I mean, boy, it was pretty concerning.
Yes, indeed. And a lot of the times we have Santa Ana winds that are blowing. And so everybody downwind from the fire is going to get that smoke. And it affects everybody. It's an Orange County thing. It's not just a, canyon thing. It's not just a Laguna Woods thing. It's everybody. So one of those things that we encourage people on those smoky days when an active fire is occurring in the county is to limit your outdoor activity. Mm-hmm. And if you have the ability to, close your doors, close your windows, and limit your outside activity and prevent that smoke from getting in. The reality is, those things take days to put out, to extinguish out. And if that wind is carrying it, you're going to be exposed to it.
Now that we've got a boatload of masks available to us in our home, is that something that we could consider using if we were outside, or you had to go outside when the air quality was bad? Does it help?
It's not 100% coverage. It's not 100% filtration. And it really depends on what kind of mask you're using. If you're using the N95 mask, which has a 95% filtration, effectiveness, then you're better protected. However, most of the masks that we're all wearing, with the cloth and stuff like that, it limits it. However, it's still better than just walking out freely and not having any sort of protection.
Okay. So that is something that if you had to go out, you could potentially use that. So that's good. That's good. And then, what are some things like individually that we can do to prevent forest fires from happening? I mean, I know we have a barbecue restrictions here in the community, because I guess that just does cause fires.
Yes. So basically anything you do with heat, you run the potential. And, we've been around doing this long enough where you can't make some of this stuff up, the scenarios that cause a fire. And so we just ask that if you are using anything that's heat related, open flame, that you got to make sure that you're on top of it. One of the common things that we see when we investigate a fire after extinguishing it is that we determine that the fire was left unattended. That's a lot of the accidental stuff. And so we want to make sure that people, if you are going to barbecue, especially now that we're going into the summer months and there's holidays and people are getting together, is that you have to keep an eye on your barbecues, and in fact, you're cooking inside also.
Right. Now, when in your kitchen, when you have a fire, do you always have to have a fire extinguisher, or what is another way to put that out?
Well, it sure doesn't hurt to have a fire extinguisher. However, if you do have a fire, you got to remember is that fire needs oxygen, to keep burning. And so one thing that you can do right away is that if you have a stovetop fire, on a pan or something like that, real quick fix, put the lid right over it. You're going to smother it.
Okay.
And yeah, that's an excellent way. I was actually at a Super Bowl party years ago. And unfortunately, the 49ers lost that year, but that's beside the point. They were baking something, and fortunately, people were in the kitchen, noticed that it caught fire. And, if you're not used to seeing fire, you could get excited pretty easily.
Yeah.
And, I came in, I looked at it, I just go, well, you know what, turn it off, and let's just keep the door closed to the oven. And then it went out. So that's one of the best things that you can do if you don't have a fire extinguisher. And in fact, I would encourage that. And then if you had to, then use the fire extinguisher.
Right. Oh, that's good. I'm sure people are like, oh my God, we have to put out the fires.
Yeah. But the one thing you don't want to do is throw water on your pan that's on the stovetop, because what you do when you have all that grease and oil that's cooking is that you actually splash it all over your walls, and yeah, you're going to create a bigger fire.
A bigger fire. Okay. Now, some people here are aware of our disaster preparedness to-go bags. Give me an idea of why we would need one.
Well, so we're talking wildfire, and it's fresh in our memories because we had some significant fires in last year, and so it's fresh, and we're encouraging people to build on that. So don't let it get out of your mind where we don't think about it any longer. In Laguna Woods, we're not in the wildland urban interface, like we typically think of. However, the potential is there. All it takes is the wind to change directions and come right back, and you're caught off guard if you haven't thought about it. The go bag is also effective for our other emergencies that can occur. We haven't had a major earthquake in a while, and that's something that everybody should consider. So I say the go bag is not just for fire exclusively; it's for any sort of disaster where, at a moment's notice, we're encouraging or we're ordering people out of their homes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the earthquake thing. I was just thinking about that this morning. I kid you not, because I moved recently and I was thinking, we haven't had an earthquake in a while. Where am I going to go? And so I was thinking of my plan
Mm-hmm.
because I've been in so many of them, living in California for so long, and the 1971 earthquake up in Northridge. So I certainly think about them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or having a plan is always key.
Yeah, and since you bring that up there, having a go bag is one element, being prepared. The other one is actually having an evacuation plan. And obviously panicking is not a very good plan. But we have, which a lot of people use, including the Red Cross, is that the 6 Ps of evacuation. This can be found, I think we've sent it to you, but this can also be found on our website at ocfa.org under safety. And 6 Ps, make sure that you get your people and your pets ready, right? So everybody's on the same page. And so you're not running around in circles when the order comes in to evacuate. Next up is make sure that you have your important papers and documents ready to go. Either have it saved up in an electronic file or something like that where you can easily get to it. And then have your phone, charged and ready. And that's one of those things where we encourage people to always have gas in your car, right? You don't want to, if you're the kind of person that runs on fumes before you decide to get gas, that's an issue when it comes time for evacuation. And then, having your prescriptions, you may not have extra prescriptions, but at least during the evacuation moment, you have a checklist of, boom, 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 you go down the list. I'm going to grab my prescriptions. I'm going to grab my glasses also, right? And so have all those things. And then if you have anything, important or meaningful to you that you would be devastated if you lost, make sure that you have a way to get that. So pictures being, one of them. I was on a fire years ago on duty, and it was frustrating because it was actually burning through the city I live in, right? And it was the freeway complex fire. And I was on the Anaheim hillside while my wife and small children at the time were home alone, packing the car with pictures and photos. And it's not fun. And believe me, when we ask people to evacuate their homes, we don't take it lightly. We don't just arbitrarily do that. We have very critical decision-making points that we tell people, okay, you are under evacuation warning right now versus you are now under evacuation order. And when it comes to these major emergencies, you will see our staff from the OCFA working hand in hand with the Sheriff's Department or the local police agency to make sure that we give people plenty of time. The frustrating part is when people don't want to leave. Right? That's the part that really gets to us. And then continuing here, having your personal electronics, right? If you don't have one of those spare little battery packs that are, get one. They're not expensive. And that's an extra charge for your phone during an emergency. And, we rely so much on cell phones now, whether, we like it or not. And, but you got to have a contingency plan for backup just in case the cell service goes down. All right. And what if you were at home evacuating and your significant other or family members were away from your home? Do you have a place to meet just in case you can't get on the phone with them? And then they always encourage to have someone out of state to have contact with also, which is, so if for some reason all of the cell phone lines are down here, eventually I can contact somebody out of state my kids can do the same thing, my wife can do the same thing, whatever it is, so you can reunite somehow. So evacuation plus the reunification piece of it. And then last but definitely not least, have your wallet nearby, plastic, but just in case all the power is down, you're not going to be able to use ATM. So, have cash also.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a good plan. Definitely good ideas. And then one last thing before we close out is fireworks. We're coming up, here on the holiday and, summertime just in general. What would you say about that?
Well, Laguna Woods, as far as I know, no fireworks are allowed in that city. And, so you may be visiting somewhere else that allows fireworks, but just keep in mind that just because you are using safe and sane and legal fireworks doesn't mean that they're not dangerous, right? And so they should be utilized by responsible adults, right? Capable, responsible adults. And I don't just say adults alone, because the key is you have to be responsible. And so that's one of those things there. And then also, once again, on our website, we have a whole checklist of things that you can be cautious of. I've seen it. I've been doing this for a while, and it's tragic. It really bums many of us out when we go on a fire and we look after the fact and just think this could have been avoided.
Right. Yeah. What if? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for the information. I appreciate it. And we'll catch up with you guys again soon.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Okay. And we'll be right back after this.